I'll try and keep this precise. This is a review of me using the Xiegu XPA125B in the field, not at home, in the field. This is out doing POTAs, for example, parks on the air. So if you think about using one of these at home, what I would say is go along to your favorite radio shop. For example, the best one around here is this one, Radio World. Go along to your favorite radio shop, and what you need to do is to get advice, because you might be better with a rig with an ATU built in and already puts out 100 watts. So there's the clue. First of all, this puts out 100 watts. So what I'm going to do is just key up using RTTY, which is about the easiest way of doing it. Remember, don't try and key it up using USB, for example, because it won't key up. And I'll show you the connections between the IC705, which I argue is probably the best POTA radio out there, my own bias. I'll show you how I connect it up as well, because that's pretty easy. So here we go. So try and keep this as precise as possible, not one of these long limbering ones. So what have you got on the thing? Let's show you first of all. So you have the voltage in, and I'm using a LiPo4 battery that's capable of up to 30 amps. However, the most amps I've ever seen go and display there is 10. So read into that what you want, and it shows you the temperature, 24 degrees C at the moment. Very warm here in the UK, indoors in this house, which is marvellous. And I've seen it go up to 60 or 70 and starts getting a bit kooky and very hot to touch. So right, I've got it on manual 20 meters. So what you do is you go through the bands. You will have seen people do this before. Takes a few clicks sometimes, just goes through the bands. Make sure. Now, one thing I would say in the review of this thing, it is very forgiving of you being in numpty mode yourself. If you have a Xiegu, I understand you can have automatic band change. I haven't. I've got an Icom IC705, so I do manual. What I'm going to do now is take you through the bands, tuning this with a set level of power, which is 10% on the internal battery on the IC705, which is just under a watt, about. I'm going to key up on the default band, which is 20 meters, with the ATU off and the power amp on. So here we go. There we go. Almost 90 on top on 20 meters even. So almost 90 on 20 meters. Now what I'm going to do now is go back and start with top band. What I'm going to do now meticulously, you can see I'm always meticulous, but that big sticker on the front of the Xiegu, make sure that your band, the frequency going into the Xiegu from your radio is the same you've selected on the Xiegu. Always take a beat. You can see it doesn't like it if you're putting too much power in as well. So if you keep your power below a watt, usually about 0.7, you're preserving the battery on your Icom, and you're also getting about as much as the Xiegu will give you reliably for your day or few hours of operation. Just a word of warning on that as well is obviously the more you try and squeeze out of the Icom, the more it's going to draw the battery on your Icom as well. So you're not going to get as long an operation time. So there you go. We go through all the bands, works on all the bands, gives you about roughly 90 watts on all the bands for less than a watt in. Now, just a point on the ATU, I'm using a dummy load here, so I'm not ATUing, but if you wonder, do I use the ATU? No, I don't. I've found that any VSWR over 3, it's supposed to tune below 6. It's not very reliable. It tunes below 3. You might as well tune your antenna or adapt your antenna if you're using a tunable vertical. If you're using a long wire, it's not brilliant, is it? So what I tend to find is you'll see right at the end what I tend to find on the long wire front. That's more about QRP and running power. So if you've got a tunable HF vertical, you can tune that. You don't need the ATU. So if you give the option between a choice of one of these without an ATU, which you don't, it would cost less and be better. In my opinion, the ATU is just a nice frilly thing, but there are better ones on the market, which of course means carrying more weight. Xiegu XPA125B, 100 watts doing POTA. Fundamentally, what you could do is you could go out, because carrying it, that's another thing, right? Carrying it, it's heavy, right? So you've got your rig, you've got your antenna, you've got your peripherals, and you've got the Xiegu, and you've got your battery, or batteries, or a power distributor. So that all carries a lot of weight. So it's good for exercise. Walk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5K, which I've done with 2 backpacks on and carrying an antenna and carrying your go box. And it's a pretty good set of exercise, especially when you're going to walk back again. However, if you're going to go out in your car, yeah, it's fine. But you know, I'm not a car park POTA person if I can help it. so I like to be out a bit active. But the alternative is, what you could do, for example, is take something like this, which is a Wonder Wand. So you could take a Wonder Wand. They have the antenna version, as you know, and also they have the long wire versions. So go onto their website and have a chat with them, or go along to your local favourite radio shop, for example. In this part of the world, it is of course Radio World. So what you would do is you put these. So all you would need with this, you don't need an ATU. You've got this. You're limited to 10 watts, so you need an external battery on your Icom, and you've probably seen on other videos I've done where I've successfully activated on 5 watts, which is just using the internal battery, so using something like this, or not something like this. So what you do is you go out with your wirebander, and you've got Wonder One wirebander and your IC705 and maybe a battery and maybe an iPhone using the SDR control app and a couple of cables, and that's it, right? That's all you need. And you can make a job of it. But it takes you longer, it takes more skill, it takes more effort. But if you want to do it fast and frivolous, you just go out with your Xiegu, you've got 100 watts, plug it into a decent antenna, and you're off. And you're going to very, very quickly get through and make all the necessary contacts you need to make. And then you've got to ask yourself, what's the fun in that? Because when it gets too easy, you're on the bit of an arms race thing in here when you think about it. It might not be long till you've got a massive power distribution unit in the back of a VW T6, and you've got a kilowatt at your disposal, and an antenna will take it, and you can work the world in 5 minutes, and you've done your 10 activations on a POTA, and off you go. I mean, I'm being daft here, but it's possible, and there's probably parts of the world, I'm not mentioning you, America, that would do this. However, whereas if you want to make it a bit more skillful and a bit more nuanced, do you really need to spend, let's say, 500 quid on a linear to do something faster and not quite as skillful, not quite as fun as using something like this, which will cost you, what, 100, 150 at the most with a counterpose, let's say? I don't know, check it out. And that's all you need to do. Do you need a long wire and the IC705, AH705 tuner, which in itself costs 205 quid to beat something like this? Well, that's another video. So for now, choice is yours. There's lots of stuff out there, but choice is yours. But I always think about the fundamentals. What do you want to get from it? Do you want to be effective, skillful, and more challenged, and sometimes fail? Or do you just know every time you park up, you set your kit up, you're going to make your 10 contacts and you're back home again before not much longer than a blink of the eye, or attaching radials to somebody who's thought it's a good idea to use wing nuts? How about that? 73s.